Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session of Times 101. My name is Kevin Davis, and I'm going to be walking you through a real simple story. We're going to actually go on one of the use cases that we've been working on here recently at Times, which is an onboarding story. So today we'll work with Times to build out a simple onboarding workflow. With that, we'll include some tools like BambooHR, Okta, as well as Opsgenie, and certainly all of this is going to be powered by Times. But before we jump into that, just to give some quick background on who Times is. So Times was founded back in 2018 by Owen Hinchy, and soon after Thomas Kinsella came along. Both of them are our co-founders and have extensive backgrounds working in and managing our large security SOC teams, specifically at eBay and DocuSign, PayPal, just to name a few. We do have a couple of offices. Our headquarters is based out of Dublin, Ireland. And then we also have another office in Boston, Massachusetts for North America. We are venture backed. So we do recently have our Series B funding. Just some of our investors here, Excel, Blossom, Addition, and Index Ventures are investing in Times at this point. So just before we dive into the demo and start building out the story, just to lay out the groundwork, I'd love to explain just how Times is different compared to some of the other SOAR platforms and automation platforms that are out there in the market. The biggest thing is that we're laser focused on automation. So with that, there's no chat, there's no threat intel, there's no ticket management systems in place within the Times platform. Again, we're just solely focused on workflow automation. And with that, it allows our users to have a better understanding, and not just developers or engineers, but anybody that's on the front lines can use and work with Times. And the reason for that is because of the flexibility of the platform itself. Times is built on 7 building blocks, which we'll go through during the demo today. And really after 3 hours of hands-on training and working with the tool itself, we really do believe that you could be as effective or efficient as a senior software engineer. And hopefully you'll be able to see that today in the demonstration. So as I had mentioned in the previous slide, there are 7 foundational actions, and those actions are listed here: the webhook, IMAP, email, HTTP request, trigger action, event transform action, and the send to story. And all of these primitive actions, all 7 of them, any combination will build out a story workflow like you see on the right-hand side of this slide. So all of those are color-coded for you so you can see exactly what combination of those actions will allow you to automate whatever workflow or manual process you have in place today. And to be a useful automation platform, really it should be able to be learned within about 3 hours or less. And really we're starting to see that a lot with our current customers, where we're seeing some deployments having 60 to 70 automation stories in place, which is significantly higher than some of the other tools in the marketplace that approach SOAR and automation, kind of similar to what Times is doing. To give some insight on the action event architecture, again, Times has those 7 foundational actions, and actions are the building blocks of automation stories. They perform specific tasks based on the user's configuration. And these widgets allow for action configuration, where you can define the resource variables, the credential variables, as well as the specific actions that the user or the request should be taking within the story itself. Each action does emit an event, and those events are structured JSON that are stored to be utilized downstream in other actions that are being added onto the storyboard to solve for that workflow automation or manual process that needs to be automated within Times. And each action receives events, performs an action, and then it emits a new event. And you'll see that as we're going through and building the story, testing the story, and ultimately running it for the very first time all the way through. And stories, again, they're a collection of actions all working together. We have a number of pre-configured stories, as well as over 1,500 templates for a variety of tools. Definitely a number of them in the security space, but also ones that are not in the security space. And again, we'll be walking through those today and showing you how you can implement those onto the storyboard. And here we just have a couple of reference customers. I'm very proud to have them within the Times family and part of the community, and certainly adding to this customer base every single month. But really proud to have this group of customers here as references that we can talk about and have them go out into the market and say really nice things about Tines and the work that the team here is doing. So really excited for that. So with that, we'll jump into the demo and we'll start to build out our simple onboarding workflow. So here I have a story already open. Again, this is the Tines onboarding story, and the tools that we'll be working with today are going to be BambooHR, Okta, Opsgenie, as well as Jira. Before I dive into the story, though, I do want to point out a couple of things that are going to be useful if you're going to be building along or working after the fact to implement some similar type story. And those two areas are going to be the credentials and the resources. Again, the credentials and the resources are global variables. They can be locked down, and only users on this specific team here will have access to them, or you can make them globally available to everybody, as you see here. And to create a credential, simply go ahead and add in the credential name. You'll see up here, it'll immediately populate with what that name is, calling that resource.credential. We can define the specific type that we want to work with. And then from there, we just input the value and then again, delegate the access rights on who should have access to the platform. So for something like BambooHR, we're just going to store the API key here, select the type as text, and then we'll be able to start working with that system very easily. Again, the next one is going to be resources. Resources, think of it like the URLs that are going to be utilized for your specific domains, for any ticketing or just tools in general that you're going to be connecting to. And then we also have the ability to store usernames for Jira or any other tools that are in place as well. And we can store all of that here within the resource section. Now, going back to the vault, if you do have your own vault already in place, like HashiCorp or any of the other vaults, Tines can connect to them. You don't have to use the Tines credentials vault if you don't want to, but we do have that flexibility, and certainly our vault is extremely secure, and we have a number of customers utilizing the Tines vault, all the way from small SaaS organizations to Fortune 50 organizations as well. So there is flexibility and opportunity there to build out whatever workflow that you would like. So with that said, we'll jump right into the story itself, and we'll start building. So the main story, again, here that we're going to be working with is this onboarding story. And the first thing to point out over here in the top left-hand corner is these actions. And again, the 7 foundational actions, any combination of these will allow you to automate and build out your story and workflow that you're trying to solve for. The 3 main ones to get data into Tines is the webhook, the IMAP action, as well as the HTTP request action. All 3 of these actions will allow you to get data into Tines. It'll obviously take some configuration for IMAP, so that way we can properly read from the host securely. The HTTP request action, where you'll be defining the endpoint, as well as any authentication headers that need to be provided. And then the webhook action does provide you with the webhook endpoint, so that way you can start making simple calls like you see here, or more complex curl calls to that endpoint to get data into the Tines platform. In this particular demo, we're going to be utilizing one of the specific features to Tines, which is this form. So here in the form section, once I click that, I'll be brought to this pre-configured template where I can start to define the name for this form. So if we say this is going to be our onboarding story, once we add that there, the form name will update. And then we can go ahead and give this a simple description. So when users log in, see this story, they understand immediately what it's going to be used for. Now, the receiving action, we're always going to want to go ahead and select the webhook action. It's the only action that's going to be or allow you to input data into the form and then start to receive that data into the Tines story. So once we've defined that, we can now go ahead and start adding our different fields. So for this particular field, I'll leave it as short text. I'll go ahead and update the name to first name, but we do have a number of other options. So if we wanted to provide short, long text, email, URL, date, option, file upload, all of those are available to us. And then we also have the ability to add a description as well as max characters. And then for this one in particular, I'm going to go ahead and make this a required field. And I'll go ahead and add in a few more names or a few more fields as well. So we'll do first name. We'll do last name. I'll add in our department. We'll also make both of these required. And then we'll do a option. So we'll say tools that we want. We'll put Okta and Opsgenie. And then the last one that we'll go ahead and add in here is the ability to select our title. So we'll put in sales engineer, and we can go ahead and add in customer success engineer, and we'll use those as our two default for now. And then I do want to make this tools one multi-select instead of the dropdown, so that way both of those populate for us here. Great. So now that we've built out the form itself here by adding in our fields for first name, last name, department, tools, and title, we can go ahead and we can start to populate this information, and we can see what comes in when we submit it to the webbook. So we'll select both of these and our title. And you'll notice all of these fields are required. So in order for this submit button to populate, all those fields need to be required. If none of them were mandated as required, just by going ahead and adding one of the field input values in there, you'll immediately be able to hit submit and send that information through. But these ones we are going to make required because we do want to have a standard process in place for onboarding new users. So we'll go ahead and we'll submit that. And now we'll have our first event right here where we can start to see all the information that was sent through. And this will be that entry point to start creating all of our different workflows within this automation story that we're building out for onboarding. So here we have our first name, last name, department, the tools, as well as my specific title. And you'll also notice we provide all the header information as well as the response. And this is extremely important because we want to provide you as much flexibility and usability to use whatever pieces of information are being passed through into Times downstream into additional actions. So if you have a reset link that's provided within the header itself, we can share that information over for you and then allow you to email that out to a user should they need to reset their password, as an example. So going back to the properties section, the first thing that we're going to want to do is I'm going to want to use our event transform action. So if I drag and drop this over here, it's immediately going to put this into the message only mode. If I do want to see what specific options are available to me, you'll always have configuration available so you can understand which options are available. And then you also have the ability to go and view the documentation page so you can see specifically for event transform action, not only what this action does, which is to modify the contents of incoming events, but also the features for that specific action as well. So you can extract, explode, deduplicate. We're currently using message only, and then also delay and implode. So if you're looking to delay events based off of some type of time criteria, say you want to wait 24 hours before unblocking an IP address, you can use this one. If you want to deduplicate based off of a count or a specific period, you would use the deduplicate event transform action. And we also have the ability, if we wanted to search for specific event transform actions. So if we wanted to utilize, say, a regex to extract out different pieces of information, whether it's an MD5, SHA-1 hash, extract IP addresses, just by dragging and dropping that action onto the storyboard, again, you'll see the appropriate mode has already been defined for us. The regex, more importantly, has already been configured, so there's no need to have to brush up on regex skills, learn regex, or if you just simply don't like it, try to write your own regex. And the biggest thing here to identify and point out is once we extract the information we're looking for, we're going to put it into a new field. But most importantly, the only thing you'll ever have to worry about is defining the specific JSON path where you want to extract that information from. So if I just use this general event transform action here, and I go ahead and rename it to generate user info, I'm going to simply tie this event transform action up to the webhook. And now I'll be able to customize exactly what I want to input into this event transform action here. And the reason I'm doing this is because most tools, specifically the ones that we're going to be using, require standardized format as well as required fields to add a user into their system. So just by using the event transform action, I'll be able to build out a very consolidated and concise way to input information here. So if I just go ahead and do something real simple where I go ahead and add email, we're going to pull in the webhook information. We're going to look at the body and we're going to pull in the first name. Now I could leave it as this, but obviously first name is not an email address. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in a liquid filter here. And in case there's any mixed characters, again, I want to standardize on this information. So I'm going to go ahead and do downcase. So any capitals are going to be sent to lowercase. I'm also going to do slice 0. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep the first letter of my name as the initial. And then I also want to go ahead and add in my last name so I can standardize on first initial last name for my email syntax. So again, I'll do the webhook.body and I'll go ahead and do last name. And again, I want to standardize on the data format. So I'm going to do pipe downcase. And then I'm also going to go ahead at the end of this and do @timestest.com. So now if I wanted to see exactly how this is going to look when I were to run my initial request for that form, I can go ahead and click try run, select the event that I want to test this out on, and see exactly how this is going to populate when I'm pushing it into BambooHR, Okta, Opsgenie, and documenting everything in Jira. So already we're off to a good start here just by doing a simple dry run, and again, standardizing on that information. Now, the other part I want to add in, I do want to add in a first name. So we'll do the same thing. We'll call our webhook. We'll do .body, and then we'll do .first name. And then I'm going to add in another field here, and this is going to be last name. And same thing, double curly brace period, webhook, .body, .last name. Great. And again, if I wanted to dry run this, select dry run, select my event. And then once I go ahead and submit that, you'll see I have all the appropriate information already configured. So now that we've defined our form for values to be added to for that onboarding, we've generated or created an event transform action to standardize and generate user information. The next thing I want to do now is start to go ahead and use a number of these public templates that we already have. So if I type in BambooHR, we can take a look at the options that we have here, which is to get employee directory or get employee data. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and drag and drop this on. And I'm actually going to modify this. And I really want to show how simple it is to change and create a simple template within Times to go ahead and create our users for that. So if I go ahead and change this here, and we'll call this our add employee to Bamboo. We'll take a look at the URL. So we have our api.bamboohr.com API gateway.php. And for this, I'll go ahead and remove the remaining portion of the endpoint. And then as you remember, when we were going through at the beginning, we have this global resource variable that we can call, which is going to be our BambooHR URL. And then we can do /v1/employees. And then again, we can take a look at what other information we need to change. So our method is going to be a post. And then the payload information, we can remove this specific line. And we can add in a number of others, which is going to be our first name. And for now, I'll just add all of these in. And we'll do last name, department, And most importantly, the email, which is a required field. And it's actually going to be work email, the capital E. And then we can also add in job title. So we'll do JOB title. And now we can start to input all the values here. So if I go ahead and call that generate user info, it's going to be first name. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. And we'll change this one to last name. And let's see, what do we define here? Email. Perfect. And then I can get the department information from our webhook form. I can do the same thing with our job title. Add that in. And then we want to make sure we have the appropriate credentials, which we do. And then Bamboo URL up here. Now, the one thing I want to double check is to make sure I have the appropriate URL. So timestest.bamboohr.com. I think I'm only going to need times test, so I'll update this. I will make it available to everyone. I'll save that resource. And now going back, this should be all that we need to make that successful call. So again, now we're adding in our different requests to third-party tools. Now, if I wanted to save this, if I wanted to reuse it again for potentially other stories, in the top right-hand corner, I can click on the ellipsis, click Create Template. And then from here, we'll be provided with this action template name. We'll leave the request type as HTTP request, but we can modify and change others should we need to. We can do BambooHR. Copy that, paste it into the product, and then create new employees. And then we have all that information saved. So now once we save that template, we go back into our story. That'll now be available over here, where we can immediately drag and drop that on for any additional stories we want to build out in the future. Great. So now that we've added our BambooHR request, we can now move on and we can add in additional ones. Again, we want to add in Okta. And Okta is a unique setup where instead of just creating the user, they also have the ability to activate a user. So we're going to go ahead and drag and drop that over as well into this workflow. So that way we're immediately automating that task as well and just providing the activation link directly to the user in their email from Okta itself. And again, same type of process. There's no code to write. There's nothing to update or modify or check. We just drag and drop down to each action. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have that resource variable correct, which is Okta. We're also going to make sure that we have that credential variable correct, which we do, and that's Okta. And then again, the first name, last name, email, login email, and mobile phone. We won't use that one here. So let me go ahead and disconnect this. And a little trick that you have the ability to do, instead of having to go through and resubmit all the information in the form, we can select our webhook action. We can go to events, click re-emit, and that's going to rerun the event for us. So now we'll start to see all of this information, and we have a little bubble here so we can see what's going on with the times issue. So 409, that's going to mean we already have a user that's been added, but that's fine. No issues there. Duplicate email, which is what it's expected. So I'll just go ahead and clear this log so that way we don't have this red dot staring at us. And now when I tie that back up to Okta, again, I can start to define these paths. And you can start to see this is why we say within about 3 hours, you can become pretty much an expert within times, because it's a lot of repetition where we're doing double curly brace, calling the specific action that we want, selecting the JSON path that we want, and then updating all of that information. Let me go ahead and grab this criteria here, and then we'll update this login with the same information. So we'll just copy and paste this. And if you don't like using the builder and you want a different way to work with the JSON elements, you can simply go to plain code. And then from here, you can copy and paste in already pre-formatted JSON if you have it, or you can just simply work with it here if that's what you're more comfortable with. But the builder is certainly very easy to work with, very repetitive as well, as far as adding in the different values in field names, so on and so forth. Now we'll just want to go ahead and add in that activate user and Okta ID. So this one we're going to pull, and we're actually just going to wait and we'll test that one out. So again, we'll just tie this up here. And then when we run it, it's going to be something like create user in Okta. And I bet it's going to be .body.id. But we can certainly test that out and see and make sure that's exactly what we need at that point. But I'm fairly certain that that's all we need for now. So great. So at this point, we've again gone ahead. We've created our form. We've defined our fields. We've made them required, which tools the user should be added to, and then the specific title and the department that that user is a part of. Going back onto the storyboard, taking a look at our annotation checklist, which are very easy to create and document everything. So if we wanted to, again, add in information on what this is, we can simply do a header, adding new employees. So that way, immediately it's understandable on what the user is trying to achieve. When somebody new to Times logs in and is understanding or trying to understand which tools and what stories are being utilized, we can go ahead and add that in there. And then if we wanted, we can also take a look at our docs, and we can document what an event transformation action is. We'll just select this here, make it a link, paste our value, click off, and now we have this link immediately available. So again, if anybody needs to go to a third-party site, the Times webpage, and get more insight and information, they have the ability to do that right here. Awesome. Now, some of the other pieces of Times too, I know we've only focused on 4 actions, but we do have the ability to pull and utilize some of our trigger actions. And the trigger actions, think of them as your rules engine. So we can go ahead and tie this up here, and we can say that this is going to be our sales engineering trigger action. So we can build in filters to say, even though we're going to add that employee to Bamboo, we're going to add them to Okta, we're going to activate them in Okta, and that should allow them to have the necessary access rights they need to certain applications. We may also want to say, there are certain tools that the sales engineering team or the customer success engineering team should only have access to. So if I want to recreate this trigger action again, I can go and drag and drop it on, or I can do Command C, Command V, and then simply tie that on, and we'll call this our CS engineering trigger action. And again, tie that up, select both of them, drag it over. And now we can again take a look at the configuration options and see exactly what's available to us as far as the type, the path, and the value. So here I'm going to go ahead and do, instead of regex, I'll do field equals value. And that value is going to be sales engineering. And double check our events, make sure that we have that correct. So we have the title correct, but the department is actually going to be sales. So we'll do this as sales, and we'll define our department from the webhook action. And then we have the ability to, again, run that. And then we can do something similar here where we say that the field either equals or is not equal to the value. And that value again would be sales, and same process, webhook.body.department. Perfect. Now we've added some logic in, so we can see exactly who should be added to what systems. So if customer success should only be added to Intercom, we can go ahead and put that on here. If sales engineering should only be added to Jira and not intercom, we can add that over here as well, and then have that variability within our story. And then again, depending on the defined rule, the workflow will continue on down the path that's been defined. But the important thing to note is we're going to try both paths simultaneously. It's not a one or other. Both of these triggers will be tried at the same exact time. So there's no need to worry about those types of statements at that point. Great. So now that we've added that, let's go ahead and we'll start to test this information out. So we can go back to our form. And this time I'll just do first name test, last name Davis. Our department is going to be sales, tools, and then our title. So we'll go ahead and click submit here. And I'm changing that just because I don't want, again, that red dot to pop up when I'm adding that user to Bamboo. We've already added our user successfully into Okta. We've activated that user. And again, based on that rules condition that we defined for this trigger action, we can see that the rule did match for the field department equaling sales. So if I go ahead into my events, click show, we can see exactly that, where the rule matched is true, the results, and all of that information is right there for us. Now it's important to note, we're not just going to show the values and the output from the action that's selected, we're also going to show all upstream actions. And again, this is extremely important when we're building out stories, because it allows us to understand what values and information is available to us if we're adding additional downstream actions. So again, adding that employee to BambooHR, the header information is available to us. Same thing with creating that user in Okta, having all of that body information to us. But you'll notice too, we also have the status. So if we did want to create a trigger action where the status did not equal a successful response, whether it's 200, 201, we can add those types of statements into that trigger actions and have that additional flexibility and awareness on whether things are failing, and then to notify users should something fail. And we can do that by selecting and clicking monitor action. And again, we can select notify when no events are emitted within a specific time period, or we can say notify when action fails. So again, similar to what we ran into the first time where we had that 409 error, we can add that type of condition and logic in, define exactly what we want when that fails, and then send a notification email to either one or many users, depending on the workflow that we want to follow. So I'll leave that in here for now, just in case, and then we can go ahead and save that. So instead of doing it on the trigger action, I'm just going to simply do it on BambooHR, and then define exactly what I want. And you can see here, you can select all of them as well. Perfect. So let's go ahead and we'll continue to add on to our story. So now we want to go ahead and have the user be added to Opsgenie. So I've already gone ahead and just like before, I created a private template to be reused later on. So regardless of if that user is going to be in a specific department, I'm going to go ahead and drag that over to the sales engineering trigger action. Here we have all of our user information. So we can go ahead and we can see that the username has to be an email address. So I want to get that generated email that we've created. So that way we standardize on that. The full name, we want to do our webhook action .body .first name, and then we can do space, and same thing to add in the last name. So we'll add that in there, and then we can leave all of these other pieces of information as is for the moment. And then again, just make sure our authorization Genie key is correct. And then we already have the endpoint configured. So that's going to be all set for us. And now the last piece I want is to go ahead and document all of this in Jira. So I have a system of record on all of the tools that the user's been added to, and then make that very simple and consistent to continuously get. So I'm going to drag this over here, recreate the issue in Jira, and I'm going to tie both of these up in the middle. And now I have that here. And then my issue in Jira, again, we're going to call that resource variable. We're going to go ahead and update our key to be demo. We can leave the issue type as task. For the name, we can do unassigned. And then we can go ahead and we can describe whatever information we want within Jira. So if we wanted to do something where we're documenting exactly who it is we're onboarding, we can add that here in the summary. So we can do something where onboarding ticket for, and we'll do again that webhook dot body dot first name space webhook dot body dot last name, and we'll say for webhook dot body department. We can have that there, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add in the specific tools in the accounts that we're adding that user to. So for descriptions within Jira, there's a couple of ways that we can do it. If you already know how to format Jira, you can simply add that directly into this description here. Or a little trick that I showed on the last one was to drag and drop over this get issue in Jira. Again, we'll just make sure this domain is correct. And we'll say we want to do demo our key, and we'll do 4859. I think that's a recent ticket. And let's see. No, we just need to update this to have curly brackets to close it. Again, make sure our resource is correct for our username, our demo, and we'll click dry run. And let's see what we get. Issue does not exist. Okay, so let's take a look at Jira, and we'll go into 4.5. Oh, okay. So we'll do 4589. See if that one populates for us. Let's try a different credential. Let's see what we're doing here. 404. Issue does not exist. All right, let's find an actual issue in here instead of just adding one. We'll just do this one, 480. There we go. And you can see that the red bubble immediately went to the 3, and we can see and take a look at what this formatting looks like for the field in the description. And it's really just pipe, field name, pipe, and then some asterisks for bolding, and then some other criteria there. So we'll do something really similar. We just go ahead and create that Jira issue for description. And we'll do this one as a double pipe account and double status. We'll close that with the double, and then we'll do single pipe BambooHR, and then we can do status. We'll do completed, and then we'll do the same thing for the others as well. So we'll say Okta completed, and do Opsgenie completed. Just make sure there's a space there for consistency. And then we should be good to go with adding all of that information in, completing it, and then from there, once all of this runs, we can make sure that this is logged and created successfully, and then have all of that tracking appropriately in place. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this issue. And now we can go ahead and give this a run, where we're going to, again, input that information into the form itself. We're going to generate that user's information, again, standardizing on the data values coming through to downcase first name and last name while we append the timestest.com address at the end. We're going to add that employee into BambooHR. We'll create the new user in Okta. We'll add the user in Okta. Based on the trigger action that we add here, we can add them into their own respective tools, but we're just going to keep it real simple. And we already know that we both want sales engineering and customer success engineering on call. So we'll add them into Opsgenie. And then we're going to, again, document everything in a simple, clean ticket directly in Jira. We also have our annotations explaining what we're doing here in this story with direct links out to documentation, so that way folks can get that information should they need it at all. I'm also going to go ahead and remove all of the events that I've already run by, again, clicking in the top right corner. We'll do delete all events. And that way we have a nice simple story that looks like this. And then we can start to check the other tools to make sure that all of that was actually successful. So for the first name, we're going to go ahead and we'll do Glenn, and we'll do Roberts as the last name. Department, we'll do sales. We're going to select our tools, add the title for that user, and then we'll go ahead and hit submit. And once we submit this, we're again going to automate adding that user into BambooHR, adding them successfully into Okta, which will give them access to additional applications, but also add them directly into Opsgenie. So let's go ahead and click submit, and we'll start taking a look at the other tools. Awesome. So right here, we have immediate success where we have no red bubbles indicating that there was a failure. We have a successful call to add that employee to Bamboo, create the user in Okta, add them into Opsgenie, and then create that simple ticket. And this is all obviously powered by Times, and really just kind of getting across how easy it is to build some types of similar workflows like this. So we'll go ahead and we'll check BambooHR and make sure that that employee Glenn Roberts was actually added successfully. So we can take a look here. Show all 27. Perfect. So we have sales engineer Glenn Roberts already active and added into BambooHR. Go ahead and log into Okta. Make sure that that user was added successfully, which we already know that they were, but always good to validate and at least show it. And then we'll need to add in our authentication code for Okta. So let me go ahead and grab that. And verify. Go into our directory and people. You can see our users here. Awesome. So we have Glenn Roberts. We can see he's already pending user activation. So should have received that email. Unlike Caleb and the other Kevin Davis that we have in here, they're still in a stage status waiting to be activated. And then when we go into Opsgenie, we refresh this users page. We should now see perfect Glenn Roberts, that email address there. Not yet verified, so we're waiting for that verification to be done. And then when we go back into Times, I explicitly want to make sure I grab the right ticket this time and not sit there and try to guess. So 4585, 4585. And now we have that simple ticket right here, again, outlining who we did this onboarding for, the department that they're in, the accounts that they've been added to, and the status of that specifically. Now we can do additional verification and logic as well as documentation. So if we wanted to say each time that the validation link was clicked for Okta or for Opsgenie, we can go ahead and we can add in the ability to add a comment in Jira. So if we wanted to say add comment, we can go ahead, drag and drop that on. And again, same type of process. So we'll go ahead, tie up the create issue. And we're just going to say success. We'll make sure we have the correct resource variable. And then here, instead of hard coding in the key like I did previously, we'll just simply call our create issue in Jira .body .key. And then we'll just remove that space at the end and make sure that we added the brackets at the end of this again. Perfect. Username, credential. And once I go ahead and click dry run, we should see success, and we'll go back into Jira, success. Perfect. Great. So now I hope you all enjoyed this simple walkthrough in Times 101 on how to go ahead and add a user into a simple workflow for onboarding. Again, we have the ability to utilize the webhook action, utilizing the form value inputs. And I do want to call out too, if that's not a workflow that's going to work for you, if you simply want to call that information from your HRIS system, whether it's BambooHR, Workday, or any other tool that you're using, it's very easy to do so. We have some customers that are looking at the last start date utilizing the liquid templates. So here, if we wanted to say the current date is now, and then as an example, we can drag and drop this over quickly. And again, we'll go ahead and use our private template we created earlier. And instead of taking a look at all of this information here, we can simply say hire date, and we can paste this in. And instead of doing now, we can say, let's take a look at now minus the last 24 hours from today. And that's just another way to go ahead and add users into different tools if you don't want to pre-stage it and you simply want to pull on a recurring basis by scheduling this action to run every day, every evening, every hour, every minute, whatever that workflow is that you're looking to solve, we'll be able to help you solve it. It's just a matter of understanding the desired end goal and taking the necessary steps along the way to get there. So again, we can check every hour and we can go ahead and we can take a look at adding a new employee into BambooHR by simply looking at the hire date being within the last 24 hours and then adding them all the way into those new tools. And to change a process, it's very simple. So I could either delete this one or I could keep it as reference, drag and drop. And from there, we can go ahead and have a new workflow, a new process in place. We don't have to recreate a story. We don't have to change code. We don't have to understand anything other than the steps in which we want to change in making the correct modification. So I really look forward to any questions after this. We'll leave it open for a couple minutes for any Q&A. But if you do want to utilize a similar story to this, I'll export it out so that way everyone has access to it in a follow-up blog post on what we talked about today. And if you're looking to build a simple workflow like this around employee onboarding or even offboarding, and certainly, with the main use case being security, we're happy to help you out with all of the different solutions we have, as well as resources, and some more company insights in our blogs. And then you can also go ahead and take out your own free trial of Times on the community edition. It's free forever, so you always have access to it up to 3 stories. There are some limitations, but we certainly want to make sure that everyone has the ability to automate whatever they have in place today and utilize the power of Times to optimize those workflows and improve any of the manual steps and processes that you have in place today. So go ahead, check out times.com, sign up for free, use our community Slack account to get in touch with myself or anybody else in our organization to help answer any questions or best practices. And we always have intercom up and available. So if you want to interact with our sales team or again, anybody in support or our sales engineering, really looking forward to working with you and talking with you all. So I'll leave it open for questions now, and thank you again for the time.